Hello, how are you? Welcome to Trapping the Time. My name is Pablo and today I'm going to review this beautiful Seiko Prospex land turtle. A watch that the brand launched just a year ago and that differs from its diver brothers in several ways. Let's have a look at it now. Before we start this review of this piece, I just want to have a word with you about a little detail. Of all of you that watch our videos, only 27% are subscribed to the channel. Well, what I wanted to ask is, if you're liking our work, if you support the content, please subscribe to the channel. It costs you nothing but a click and a fraction of your time, and it comes in handy for us for various obvious reasons. On top of that, I'd also like to thank you all as always for supporting us. The truth is that we're having spectacular growth, and a good part of that push we owe to a very special friend of ours, Jose Antonio from Big Ben Theory, an exceptional guy with whom, if you don't know, you'll learn more about watches or human quality. I advise you to take a look at his channel and don't be fooled by appearances. If his set seems modest to you, it's because you don't know that the microwave, the toaster, the coffee with the milk or the toast coleco are magic that he uses to give classes on bonhomie and horology. Masterful in both cases. We have also exchanged watches. And now I have Jose Antonio's Marlin with me. I use it daily and I enjoy a strange pleasure unknown to me until now in having a friend's watch. I have to confess it's something very special. I love it. The dream continues and we are more and more in this community of time catchers. So thank you all very much really. After this preamble, perhaps long but necessary for various reasons, I'm now going to focus on the review. When I bought my King Samurai, I valued for a long time if instead to acquire the King Turtle. The final decision was made because I liked the faceted case of the Samurai better. But it was a choice, almost tossing a coin, because I was attracted to one as the other. That attraction increased exponentially when a few months ago I learned that Seiko was launching the model in its land version, also the Prospex range, but not exactly a diver, but rather a field or adventure watch. His diver brother is much larger in size and seniority. The first turtle saw light in 1978, and in terms of size it ticks almost 3 millimeters in diameter from one side, smaller in size, but it's not in the aesthetics or functionality. And that's how this watch was, stored in my brain as much desired watch. But like so many others, I always have a lot of pieces that are on an imaginary waiting list. But a few days ago, I received a promotion from a famous store where they had reduced it to £330 when its normal price is £470. And I immediately went from being one among many to being the primus inter pares. And the truth is that I'm delighted with it. I had some doubts about the size because I was afraid that those 42mm diameters would seem scarce. But now I must say that I'm fully satisfied. And I confess that it was not like that from the first moment. Well, when it arrived and I had it in my hand, it seemed a bit small because of that tricky aspect of being a diver. But it didn't take more than a few days to change the chip and the criteria, and I must say now that I like it a lot more, because it's just more compact, it's thinner, it's more elegant than its older brother, the diver. Let's see, 42mm can't be considered precisely a small watch. I've said that many times in the comments that my preferred size for an informal watch is one with this one, which although it might seem so, is not a diver, even if it's from Prospex range and it's enabled to submerge to 20 bars or 200 meters. It's not a diver's watch for several reasons. One is obvious, the other is its leather strap. The other, you know, if you handle it, is that the bezel with an appearance very similar to the usual ones, except for those letters that mark the cardinal points, and for its operation that has nothing to do with the diver. This one does not have clicks, nor is it unidirectional. It turns both ways, and its touch is, how to define it, rubbery, but nice. But much easier to turn than a King Samurai. There's no comparison in that, but it makes sense that it is so. The bezel is for orientating yourself to the sun, not for calculating your remaining dive time. They are different functions that fully satisfy these differences. And I think that is precisely what makes me appreciate that this watch is not so big, that its size clearly distinguishes it from the diver, maintaining the design but making it clear that it's an adventure or survival watch on land. In fact, Seiko exposes it like this in their catalogue. Here you can see it. You already know that the names by which we know them are not generic of the brand, that they are distinguished by references, not by proper names. These are worn by fans, and this watch is Tortoise, which is what they call these land animals instead of turtle, which would be sea animals. Although there are also some who call it Galapagos. It's an analog clock with 3 hands and a dater. The dial is matte black, and the bar-shaped applied indices that mark the hours stand out, except for 3, 6, 9 and 12. Which are trapezoidal in shape, double at noon. A marker design that we already know in more Seiko watches. They are copper coloured around the edges and filled with a beige lumibright, a combination full of elegance and effectiveness, as we all know the quality of Seiko's luminous paint. The name of the brand, Prospex logo, and the legends, automatic and 20 bars, are painted with the same copper colour. That's one that stands out the most in this piece, ignoring the black that dominates everything. The dater is between 4 and 5 o'clock, and I like that place. I like it that it's negative with a black background and a white number. And by the way, it's the only white thing in the whole watch, the number and the date. The hands are, or at least seem to me, beautiful. The one with the large arrowhead R's and the syringe minute hand, both in the same coppery colour as the markers, and also filled with luminous beige material. The second hand is beautiful, the same width from end to end, very narrow by the way, with a black counterweight finished in lollipop, and also filled with lumen. The minute indices are painted in the rehaut, and itself has a shiny finish standing out on the mat of the dial. The colour scheme follows the same pattern throughout the watch, black and copper. The bezel ring is aluminium, and I'm not complaining that it does not have ceramic because it is very shiny, and this combination of finishes suits this watch very well. Ace the dial, shiny the rehaut, satin the bezel. Continuing with the bezel, the cardinal points are marked with letters, north, south, east and west, and among them these posts that do not coincide with the usual ones of the minutes, for these marks are the same subdivisions as a compass rose. For example, between west and north we have west-northwest, northwest, north, northwest and north, and so on. Something that we rarely use, but it's interesting to know. Unlike all the others, the north marker is framed in the lettering black. The rest of the letters and posts are the same copper colour as the indices of the rest of the clock. The outer face, the bezel is grooved to facilitate its grip, although, as I've already said before, this is nothing like the usual bezels due to the bidirectional rotation and that rubbery touch and no clicks. Now, I'm going to tell you how to use this bezel in case some of you don't know. If we have to orientate ourselves on the plane and we don't have a compass, this simple device can be a tool that saves us. Yes, we will always need the sun as an ally in this task. Without the sun, there is no orientation possible. The technique is as follows. The first thing we must take into account is the UTC, or the GMT time, acronym for Coordinated Universal Time, or the Greenwich Meridian. In the case of Spain, it's +1 hour in winter and +2 hours in the summer. This tells us that our clocks are 1 hour ahead in winter and 2 hours ahead in the summer relative to UTC or GMT, also commonly known as solar time, and by aircraft pilots as Zulu time. Well, we must correct that difference that varies depending on the country you're in and adjust our clock to that UTC or GMT, Zulu or solar time, call it what you want. Once we have corrected that difference, we must take into account if we are in the northern or southern hemisphere. If we are in the north, we must align the hour hand of our clock with the sun, and the bisector of the angle formed between the hand and 12 o'clock will indicate the south. If we are in the southern hemisphere, we must align the 12 o'clock of our clock with the sun, and the biselector of that angle forms the punctual hour. This will indicate the north instead of the south. In both cases, we only have to align our bezel with the obtained reference, north or south, depending on the hemisphere, and we will have the cardinal points correctly located, as if our watch was a compass. And having commented on the functionality of the bezel, I'll continue reviewing the watch. The crown is between 4 and 5 o'clock. It is very large and easy to manipulate. It is the same grooved pattern as the bezel, and on the front it does not have any logo, and the finish is brushed. It has a screw-down crown, therefore compatible with immersion. It's another thing that someone is going to put this watch in the water, of course not me, at least voluntarily. The crystal is sapphire, and this really surprised me. I didn't know it when I bought the watch, and I assumed that the sapphire was reserved by Seiko for the King Samurai or the King Tortuga versions, and that I called them a hardlex. But no, this one has sapphire, and to be honest, I'm glad. I love the box, partly because I didn't know that the tortoiseshell shape slopes down at rounded angles behind until it meets at the lid. That gives it a very unique aesthetic. Almost all my watches are more or less straight in that area, and I've loved this one for that little detail. It makes the piece lighter in sight and shape, and how can I say, more organic, more natural, and of course I love that. The case has two finishes, brushed on top and polished on the sides and bottom. If we turn it around, in addition to those sinuous shapes of the box, what stands out the most are the engravings on the lid. Another detail that distinguishes it from its diver and reinforces its identity as an adventure watch is that the code of signals for rescue in an emergency situation. For ordinary mortals, it may seem more marketing than anything else. Few of us are going to be doing the Indiana Jones with this watch, but the truth is that it's enabled for it. That's actually the spirit of it, being a survival watch on land. And that's why it's understood that the code is there. Any airborne soldier, any pilot, civilian, military must know these signals, because in terms of rescues, it's an international code. Also, when I think about it, which at first I confess seemed a bit silly to me, I remembered the episode of the Andes plane tragedy. Those of you who are older, I'm sure, will also remember it because it was something that shocked the world. The survivors of that accident had to feed on the remains of their dead companions to survive. I read the book many years ago, and then I saw the film, and in both they portrayed how those people were almost all men, young university students, who travelled to play a game of rugby. They were busy building signs for their rescue with suitcases, clothes, plane wreckage and other things. Large signs for planes or helicopters to see. When they realised that no one was coming to their rescue many days after the accident, a group of 2 or 3 decided to go looking for the rescue themselves, crossing on foot, of course, those icy mountains, guided by faith and the desire to survive. How good this watch would have been for them in that trance, I thought. The memory of that episode made me see this watch, its bezel and its cover differently. We never know when we might find ourselves in an emergency situation, even if we are not Bear Grylls or Indiana Jones. And returning to the cover of that watch, in its most external part, which is polished, we can see the references to the caliber. That is the well-known R35. And the legends of the watch, that it is made of steel, submersible to 200 meters, and that it has sapphire among others. And now, I only have to talk about the strap, which is of good quality, double layered calfskin, thicker than closer to the lugs, and in generally a very good strap. To put an effect on it, I must say that it's very inflexible. It takes forever to adapt to your wrist. The buckle is brushed steel, and it has the brand name engraved. Finally, I leave you with the measurements. 42.4 millimeters, 11.7 millimeters high, 45.2 millimeters lug to lug, and 20 wide between the lugs. To finish the review, this is a beautiful watch. We hope you like it. Thank you as always for being there. See you soon. Bye bye.